Steve Popper, friend of the show. Y'all know the story if you've kept up with the show. Newsday's NBA columnist. Knicks, Nets, whatever you need. And he's just the guy to talk to right now because the Knicks in particular are making moves. They make that trade with Mikal Bridges, give up 6 picks and Bojan Bogdanovic. Less than 24 hours later, they give OG Anunoby a monster 5 years, $212.5 million deal. And now you have a lot of storylines. Obviously, the draft just wrapped up. The Knicks got 4 different players that might help them. Some cap implications to talk about maybe. And before Steve even goes, let me remind everybody that the Jalen Brunson news of him taking $114 million pay cut potentially on his next extension that he's eligible to sign. 4 years and $156 million as opposed to 5 years, $270 million. Steve reported that and he wrote about it on Newsday.com and it got aggregated everywhere. People was like, oh, everyone was going crazy. It was on radio shows, TV shows. He actually mentioned that on our show first. So I just wanted to point that out. Steve Popper was a real friend of the show, dropping news on Sports Talk, breaking news, but we didn't really take credit for it. We're a humble show. Steve Popper, what's going on, man?
Well, I only look good if it happens, but look, back then what we were talking about is that he's considering it and is open to it, and we'll see if it actually happens. Now that we've seen the price going for some of these other ones, he may not want to be the lowest paid guy on the team.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if I could ever, as much as I love the Knicks myself, and say if I was their star player, I don't know if I would take $114 million pay cut.
I think you're forgetting one of the most powerful things, though. The power of friendship.
Oh,
Nova Knicks.
Well, you know what the other thing is too. First of all, I think his considerations are doing right by the organization and helping them get guys who can help him. But it's also a matter of security for him. If somebody comes up to you and gives you, generational, life-changing money, or tells you roll the dice and hope you do it again next year. There's a temptation to that, and not just that, but for Brunson, if he is to opt out and take the deal this summer, the extension, he has the opportunity at his next opt out option to be in a much higher bracket and more than make up for the money on the other end. And also, when you talk about the 114 that leaves out, that he's going to get a 5th year, no matter what.
Yeah.
So that's going to get added into. So it's not sort of as bad as it sounds or as generous as it sounds. There are reasons why it makes sense for him to do it.
That's true. And you also got to take into account if Jalen Brunson keeps going the way he's going in the city of New York, he's never going to pay for a meal or a drink again. So I'm sure that factors into the financials. Steve, listen, obviously we have to start off with the Mikal Bridges deal. It's been rumored and Mikal's been linked to the Knicks for obvious reasons. But with the deal finally getting done late Tuesday night, the Nova Knicks go from that to the Supernova Knicks. What is your take on the Knicks finally landing their great white whale since really Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart joined the club and Mikal Bridges?
I think it's a really smart move because for all the talk about superstar chasing, he's a better fit. He's more the kind of guy that they need because you don't need a guy taking the ball out of Brunson's hands or a guy who is going to require 25, 30 shots a game. He's a fit with these guys. He's a guy who is going to not just provide elite wing defense, but he's also a guy who is going to, I think, flourish in this role. He was never the number one guy that he was required to be in Brooklyn, the number one offensive option. He's so much better in Phoenix, playing off of another scorer. Brunson, Julius Randle, the guys that draw double teams. I think it's going to help him. It's going to make him better. And like I say, just defensively, he's almost like OG Anunoby in that it's sort of that skeleton key kind of guy who fits as a versatile, can guard almost anybody on the court. And look, when we're talking about chasing Boston, this is what you need is multiple guys who can do this.
Yes. Yeah, the Boston Celtics ran through the NBA this year. The Knicks have responded by building a team to beat Boston, and that has everything to do with Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby returning. Steve, obviously you are all over this. You've been all over all things OG Anunoby. I remember you reported Game 7 about him looking like he wasn't ready to play at all, which wound up happening. I know Knicks fans on Twitter was on your ass a little bit. So, time is passing. OG Anunoby's back.
Yeah, look, it was obvious. Look, it was great that he tried to do it, but it was obvious that he was not in any shape to play. And that was obvious in the opening minutes of the game when he scored quickly, but immediately the Pacers were targeting him defensively. He just couldn't move. He was just hobbled really badly. But I think what he did during the season, what he did during the playoffs before getting injured, I think, he showed that, again, this is the cost of doing business in the NBA now. Is he worth the richest contract in Knicks history? Probably not. He's going to be the third or fourth offensive option. He's an elite defender, but this is what it is. It's a matter of timing and what it costs to hold on to these guys right now.
No, absolutely. It's the price of doing business in today's NBA. And speaking of the price of doing business, all this second apron talk that a lot of NBA fans are just now getting accustomed to, it's definitely impacted the Knicks in their line of thinking. Now, obviously, they're draft picks. First round, they go with the Frenchman, Pacome Dadier. They go with, in the second round, they get 3 players. Tyler Kolek, well, I love that pick.
Yeah.
Kevin McCullough at 56. They got Kolek at 34. Ariel Porty at 58. 3 future seconds. But Steve, I know all things Knicks, and especially this second apron cap situation as it relates to Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson. And obviously you want to bring Hartenstein back. You want to keep Robinson. You want to keep that versatility under the first apron. This is all results of the new CBA that got enacted last year. Talk to me about how the Knicks draft picks kind of tie into what they want to do by staying under that second apron.
Well, I actually think, as odd as it sounds, I think they want to get to the second apron because they're going to be hard capped. If you're hard capped at the first apron, basically they're already there at the sort of the price point that you hit that number. But if you can get to the second apron, which they can do with some kind of maneuvering here with the cap, you add another $11 million to how much you're capped at. And look, there's disadvantages to it too. It's more restrictive in ability to make moves. You can't, if you have an injured player, you can't add somebody. You can't go out and sign some veteran minimum. But that $11 million right now is very valuable to them in their efforts to keep Hartenstein. Basically, what it does is it sort of gives them the ability. They can do the maneuvering to get to the 17 million or 16 point something for the starting salary to get to a 4-year, $72 million deal for Hartenstein. The problem is, does he take that deal? As you're doing all these acrobatics with the cap to get this money open, will he take that when he may have a bigger offer somewhere else? That's something, I've got to think that they have an idea in their head that he's, kind of informed that he will or he won't. I have heard that and reported that he has been told or has told the organization, people close to him have told the organization that they have offers out there or expect to have offers out there above what the Knicks can pay. They can't budge over that. So it's a decision by him if he wants to remain a part of this or not. But they open themselves up to that option by clearing this other cap room. And a part of that was the first round pick from France is convincing him that he should stay overseas for another year. And this is why you take an 18-year-old who's sort of raw and still developing. Is if you can keep him in there and they traded away the other first round pick, you keep that guaranteed $6 million off the books, and that's what helps open up this cap space for them.
Isaiah Hartenstein, a very valuable piece to the Knicks, especially this last season. And we'll see if Corey's power of friendship theory comes true if Hartenstein takes less money to come back.
For Hartenstein, we might have to pull a DeAndre Jordan.
Put the chair in the doorway.
Yeah.
You're not going nowhere.
We might have to.
They look. I've thought and talked to people about this during the season. The natural spot for him seems like such a great fit is Oklahoma City. They have the money. They have a need for a player like him. He plays their style. And his wife, and their newborn, she's originally from Texas, I believe. So, she may want to get back to that area. I could definitely see a path where he's looking to head that way, but I do know he enjoyed his time being a part of this. So, I think there's a part of him that loves New York and loves being a part of this. It's a big decision. Look, you're with a team here that you're comfortable at. You're with a coaching staff that enjoys you, teammates who enjoy you. Do you give that up and hope that things work out somewhere else for a little more money? $72 million is still a pretty good paycheck. And I think if he's another year in New York, they get his full bird rights. When they put an opt out in the next contract, he can be paid more. So is there a wink deal of you'll be taken care of down the road? These are sort of things no one will ever admit to, but are possibilities.
Great insight on that front. Isaiah Hartenstein, please come back as a unbiased analyst on the Knicks. Newsday NBA columnist Steve Popper joining Sports Talk today. Liam, you had a question for Steve?
Yeah, Steve, tell us more about this, the Knicks second round pick, Tyler Kolek, because from what I'm seeing, everybody's raving about him. But earlier on, before the draft, I saw him in some mocks going as early as like 22nd to the Suns. So what was the reason, if there was any reason, around the league for him to drop, 12 picks?
I don't think it was look, I will say this as someone who makes a mock draft, we have no idea. Everything's a smokescreen, and people, that even have intentions of drafting someone drops them they weren't expecting. And sometimes a guy just falls through the draft. He's some people list him in 6'3". I've seen 6'1" as a measurement for him. It's hard to make it in the league as a 23-year-old 6'1", guard coming in. That said, he's definitely got a skill set. He's a tenacious defender for his size. He's a great playmaker. He led the NCAA in Division I in assists per game this year. Just has a great instinct for that. I think as a junior also was, third in the nation, 7.5 assists per game. He's a great shooter, and just a tough kid on both ends of the court. Fits exactly in with what they do and fits the need. They're not asking him to come in and be a starter here. They were looking for and are hoping to get a guy who's a true point guard, kind of floor leader for that second unit. They love Deuce McBride. They love what he brings, but he's not that player. He's a great defensive player, and he's developed into a very good 3-point shooter. And there's definitely a role for him, on this team. But I think as a guy who organizes things, I had heard this is when they brought Alberts, basically that was what they were asking of him was, we need you to kind of run that second unit. And he wasn't that guy either because he wanted to score and, he's facing free agents. He wanted to put up numbers. So it didn't work out, in the way they would have liked with that. I think that's what they're searching for. And he's a guy who has the potential to fill that role.
Steve Popper, Newsday NBA columnist, joining Sports Talk. Steve, a question that's been, or an issue rather, that's been on my mind for the entire offseason, or really ever since he got hurt in January. That'd be the subject of Julius Randle and his future with the Knicks. Now, obviously, the Knicks got to the second seed and the Game 7 of the second round without Julius. And if you look at the numbers and the financials, he's in the second to last year, technically, of a 4-year, $117 million deal he signed in 2021. He has a player option for next season, though, so he can potentially be a free agent next year. Extension talks, we don't really know where that is. What can you tell me about what Julius Randle's future might be here? I
think he'd like to be here, and I think they would, they realize the importance of him, and I'm not sure everybody does. Because I am inundated with people saying trade Julius, and I think one of those guys who would not be saying that is Jalen Brunson, because he takes a huge load off of Brunson. He's the only other guy really on the team who commands a double team, and sort of does what Thibodeau wants. Thibodeau's entire offense is based on drawing a double team, kicking the ball out, and moving it around to find the open shooter. Julius can do that, probably as well as Jalen can. Two-time All-NBA, three-time All-Stars don't grow on trees. The contract right now is a fair one, especially when you look at what the market is becoming. He like Brunson, he's a guy who is extension eligible this summer. In August, I believe he's eligible. And he could sign a 4-year, $181 million deal. I don't think they really want to do that extension this year coming off the injury. But I think they know that this is sort of their team. As you're putting the pieces together and getting locked in here with the cap, these are your guys. If you can find a way to move Julius, you better be bringing back an all-NBA player who fills a role and fits with the team. There's not a lot of ability to make moves here, moving forward. So I think he's an important part of this, and I think he will be a part of this. But, I kind of say it with the disclaimer that, if they want to make a move, if somebody becomes available, if a Giannis Antetokounmpo type becomes available, I think, he'd be a part of a package they'd be putting together.
Hey Steve, Devin O'Shea here. I wanted to ask about a guy that's always been rumored to go to the Knicks over and over again, on a guy that wants to be a New York Knick, and now with the Mikal Bridges trade and trading all of that draft capital, still owning the Detroit Pistons pick. But Donovan Mitchell, what do you think the odds with Donovan Mitchell with this New York Knicks team? Because that's what it's been for years now. With when is Donovan Mitchell going to be a New York Knick?
I think it's down to 0 now. And look, I know he loves New York. I would not rule him out coming to New York. Just I would think and I've thought this even before the Bridges deal, that if it was happened, it was going to be to Brooklyn. Brooklyn obviously has some assets now, and they're desperate to rebuild and would like a piece to build around. I don't see it happening. I think that he's going to sign an extension there and remain for now in Cleveland and see how things go.
Steve, not to cut you off, but another guy and your colleague, not a Newsday, but your reporting colleague on the Knicks, Ian Begley, he made a comment about Karl Anthony Towns last year about the Knicks front office. I think the quote was, they'll always have interest in Karl Anthony Towns. Obviously, the Timberwolves, we don't know what's going to happen with their ownership group, Alex Rodriguez, Mark Lowe. We really don't know how that's going to shake out. We don't know how the financials are going to look. And the Timberwolves have an expensive cap sheet. So what do you think the likelihood of that is, Karl Anthony Towns with the Knicks, especially with Julius Randle's uncertainty with his extension?
Yeah, I don't think it's happening. Again, this is another one I wasn't sure about, and I think the Bridges deal just sort of cements what the roster is going to be. He makes a lot more than Julius. I mean, a lot more. And I think you could argue that Julius is more valuable than him on both ends of the floor. Look, he's a great shooter for a big man. Probably maybe one of the best, 7-foot 3-point shooters there's ever been. But I think, again, the role that Julius fills, the price he does it at compared to him, defensively, I think he's a better player. To me, it's just, it doesn't make sense. And I think sort of this star chase that we've been talking about, I think the Anunoby deal and now Bridges, to me, are sort of locking in what they're doing with as far as that kind of chase. I think it's more filling around the edges now.
All right. Well, Steve, Mr. Steve Popper, always great stuff. Always great to talk to you, my man. Thank you for joining WHBC Sports Talk. Once again, friend of the show. Good talk.
You guys, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Keep up with Steve Popper on Newsday.com and at Steve Popper on X.